Hey, welcome to another typology interview. We have Lindsay and Alan. How's it going, guys?
Yeah, great.
Awesome.
Good.
Great.
Happy to be
Um,
back.
yeah, it's great to have you guys both back. We're going to talk about your function a little bit. I'm going to pull up the map. I'm not sure that I even have it open. um, no, I don't. But anyway, I should have prepared. Um,
Well,
too
while
much
you're pulling
chaos.
that up,
Yeah.
I'll just say hello, Lindsay. It's great to meet you finally.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, Alan. Outside of just
Yeah,
Facebook world.
true. Actually, you're the first. You probably don't remember because you're very well integrated into the group, but you're the first person I had a conversation with in the group. Can't remember what we were debating. I think it was 4 functions, 8 functions, or something like that. But we're having like quite an extensive back and forth.
Yeah, no, I do remember. I remember it happening, and then I remember being like, "Cool, he's in it now. He's here for it."
No, yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So cool. There we go.
All right. So we got you guys both here. We have Lindsay here as this INTJ, right? And you're missing
Yep.
your consume.
Yes, sir.
Well, not missing, but yeah. Okay, so then you
But,
go to play and then sleep.
me,
Trying to
I'm
remember.
blast, play,
Blast.
sleep.
Yeah, so you go blast, play, then sleep. And then we have Alan over here with his TESE. And you start off
Yep.
and you have blast last, I guess, so you're going this way.
Yep.
So we're gonna have some interesting triangulation. And then the other thing is your modalities. Are you both the same modalities? Lindsay, you're FF?
I'm double M.
FM.
FM, okay. And then Alan, you're double masculine?
Yes.
Okay, so the only difference is going to be your SE then. Okay, interesting. Okay.
Cool. Just one quick question. I always thought when you talked about the alpha coins that they had to be contiguous, as in like flowing either left to right or right to left. But when you're talking about Lindsay, she jumps from NI to the TI, the blue, to then the red FI. Do you come across anybody else that's doing that 180 flip?
Where they go to with the animals. Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
the animals, the only rule really is it has to be next to one of the animals you currently have unlocked, sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yep. Okay.
Okay, let's stop the share. Okay, so let's start a little bit comparing your 2 lead functions. So we'll start with maybe TE. Alan, do you want to talk about your TE a
Sure.
little bit?
Yeah. Well, look, I'm going through kind of a reinterpretation of what I thought everything means.
Right.
Mainly, that's because there's so many things that I thought I was doing that was NI, like what I associated as pattern recognition and whatnot. But given that in my daemon stacking, NI is my weakest function, makes me question whether it's actually more an output of TA. So I'm not even sure anymore. I know what TE is.
Well, your
If I
NI
go
isn't your weakest
off,
function, it's your FI. So you should be balanced with your NI and SE.
well, see, once again, this is where I'm just like, I'm confused at this point because I thought my FI is double activated. Does that make it doubly worse or doubly better?
Yeah, it makes it doubly
Your
used.
animal stack.
Yeah, it makes it that you use it
Doubly.
twice as much. So maybe you would get better at it over time. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I was saying, because my FI is double activated, then that places my second daemon, NI. I'm using the words or paraphrasing as weakest. That
Right.
doesn't mean bad, it just means weakest.
Right.
But so where I'm getting at is right now I'm going through a mental shift where I'm trying to figure out, well, are these things NI, TA? Maybe I should give a quick example and we'll see what Lindsay's thoughts are.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's one of the purposes of this too. Yeah. So Lindsay, what about your TE? It's your second function, so you should be pretty in touch with that, and you both have it masculine.
Mm-hmm.
So is there something that I guess Alan didn't really talk too much about his TE, what it does, but like, what does your TE do for you?
For me, well, I think Alan said he had an example of what his or what he was thinking his T did, but for me, I mean, my TE is my communication and my outer workings function, and so I'm just very aware of how well I always had the bias of NI on top of it whenever I'm talking about it,
Right.
but how things are working kind of in with the people and the outer workings of the things, I guess you could say. So I want things to work for people in a functional aspect before I'm concerned about, let's say, TI versus am I understanding this? I want people to be understanding, and I want kind of the understanding level to be on the same page across the board.
Right.
And that comes through communication, that comes through in articulating like, okay, is this really what you want out of this scenario? Again, that's kind of my NI predicting, like, I don't think you
all of that was
want
NI. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of that was bringing that NI out to the general understanding. And yeah, that's interesting.
So that's where I see it a lot.
Okay. Do you see that too, Alan, that you're doing that with your NI? You're bringing your NI out to your TE to try to get everyone on the same understanding?
Yes, actually I do. But I thought, maybe I'm selling myself short, but I just assume that's something that everyone figures out they have to do if you want to be influential.
Right.
If you want to influence someone, at some point you have to put a stake in the ground and say, okay, this is the outcome I want to desire. This is go through a process of negotiation. This is what I want. This is what I think their position is. How do I bridge that gap? And if you do that live in the moment, you might have some success here and there, but the house, being the casino, always wins, which means you're the punter in the casino. And yeah, you have to predict if you want to be more influential. Yeah.
Does that resonate with you, Lindsay?
Yeah, I mean, I can kind of see how Alan's TE is like on top of his NI. Like for me, I believe a savior function is kind of the function that can get all of your other functions on board with what it wants to do. That's kind of how I look at it. And with Alan, I can see how his like his goal is kind of like more of the impact. Like I can see his TE basically grabbing onto his NI and pulling it onto his agenda of what he wants to do, basically.
Right.
Whereas for me, I feel like it's my NI being like, I want this all-encompassing goal to happen. And then I'm like, well, okay, so then because of it, I have to communicate, you know? And so it's like a little bit backwards.
Yeah.
So, but I can see where he's coming from the other side. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool. Then you're lucky that you've got Blast in your stack. I can't imagine what it'd be like to dream of this world, want it to happen, but then don't have Blast to have the drive to share it. That would be quite painful.
Yeah, well, I really like what you shared there, Lindsay, that like you have this goal that you want, and then your TE is going to sort of figure out how to do it. It's like that your NI is the boss, it's in charge, and it's like, okay, servant TE, now go do. Yeah.
That's how I feel like with all of my functions. They're all slaves to my NI. And so it's like if I have to SE, it's because my NI said that I have to SE, you know?
Your NI needs more information.
It'll drag whatever it needs on board. So, yeah.
Question. Do you find that your NI serves your SE? Because the reason I ask is, I hear what you're saying. I used to look at everything as serving my TE, but now I'm actually looking at it as serving my FI.
Interesting. So does my NI serve my SE? You know, I think I'm so not unaware of SE, but I don't pay attention to it until I have to, you know, and then it's my NI that's making me alert that, okay, it's time to pay attention to this now because it's important to get the job done. And then in a way, it's like I have to deal with it because I have no other option but to deal with it because I want to do the thing that I'm trying to do. And so in that way, it'll kind of, you know, serve to it, but it's because I have no other option at that point.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
I do see your question, Alan, and I resonate with it myself personally. I think maybe what you're talking about is that maybe Lindsay, he's saying that maybe all of your NI concepts, one day you want them in reality. You want them to reach the SE. And so like, that's what you're serving. You're serving that goal of bringing it all into the SE. You're serving the SE.
Yeah. I mean, everything in N-land is useless until it comes into the SE.
Right. Yeah. Cause like the same thing happens for me. I noticed this a while ago too, is that like my TI is serving my FE, all of my TI, all of my thinking. I want to bring it out to the tribe at some point. I just have to get it there. Yeah. So yeah, for sure, Alan. That's a good point.
It is. And that might be some of the introverted world versus the extroverted world, because it's like the introverted world kind of doesn't really exist, even though it does. But it's like the extroverted world is really where everything happens.
That's so grown up for you to say, Lindsay. That's so grown up. Because like what's your Isabel would say the complete opposite.
Yeah, I know.
The inner world is the only thing that exists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, I mean, it is the reality though. And it's, it's
That's
kind
really
of
grown up for you to say.
It's a hard thing, I think, to like bite off when you realize that until it happens in the real world, like nobody cares, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So that's funny because I'm going through the opposite now. I'm starting to realize I've restricted myself by being too grounded. I've handcuffed myself, and my ticket to not freedom, but my ticket to open exploration is to allow myself to be more imaginative, being that introverted world. Yeah.
That must be a fun journey to kind of explore through, like giving yourself the time and the space to go through that because you made a point to.
True. Yeah, that's true. Well, look, I don't want to hijack it on that side. I'll just say one resource, and I'll give you an example of that self-restriction. I've been going on through this process of what's my identity? How do I find my identity? And then I found this quote the other day that I posted in the group, and it says, you don't find your identity, you create your identity. I thought, wow, that's so cool. That's really saying that's resonating with that. I've got that license to be free, figure it out. Yeah. So it's just a bit of alignment there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking on that, your FIs. So how do you see your FI, Lindsay? Since you're a bit closer to it.
Well, my FI is, it's definitely always there in terms of, it's always like an underlying tone, I feel like, of my day-to-day life. Like I am very aware of the things that are important to me, and I am very aware of, like my core values, but in general, and so there's certain things I won't move on no matter what. But in general, they're not as important to me as kind of a lot of the, and I like does it make sense for me to be applying my FI to this situation in terms of what I'm looking to achieve? Like that's always kind of where my balance is. So sometimes if my FI doesn't make sense in a certain like scenario, then I just do away with it. And it's very easy for me to do away with because it doesn't apply here. So I have it, it's there, it's underlying, but I'm very okay operating without it in a sense, depending on the objective.
Wow. So you've almost got conscious ability to pick and choose when to say, okay, where's my FI filter?
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, if it's necessary, or if I need to pull from it for some kind of reason, of course, reasons,
right,
at the end of the day. Yeah. But if I need to pull on it for a reason, I can, and I know it's a resource within like my stack of functions. But if it's not applicable, like someone asked me a question today about, do you use your FI when you type other people? And I was like, no, I don't actually, because I feel like my FI is more in line with my biases that I have. Because, it's kind of maybe that person said something because of this, and maybe they were angry about, and it's just more of this introverted world, and I feel like it's kind of full of my biases more. And so I kind of separate my FI when I'm typing, because I do want it to be as objective as possible. And yeah.
Right.
That is cool. That's a hidden gem. So it lines up actually with the INTJ friend of mine who, in his business endeavors, has to network with all these people. And like I talked to him personally about it, and doesn't necessarily enjoy these people, but it's not even pretending. See, that's the difference. Like for me to integrate with those people that I already have a bias against, I have to pretend. For him, it's just like I can turn it on and off. And he's still genuine in that moment. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
I was wondering, Lindsay, with what you were saying about either choosing your FI or your T, doing away with whatever, which one is it really that process of bringing your NI out to the SE, like that process of bringing your NI to the objective world? and whichever one will be more useful to do it, that's what you're going to use?
Yeah, definitely. That's 100% what it is. The usefulness of the functions on the way to producing the thing. And even with like, along with that, like I really believe in like the 8 function flow kind of that Dave and Shan talk about with, you know, the purpose of all of the functions, like all 8 of them. And even though, you know, I don't have FE or I don't have SI, that sometimes those functions are really needed for a certain scenario. So I've really been trying to learn their tools better so that if I need more of an SI for a certain situation, or if I need more of an FE for a situation, I can grab a tool from that function and apply it in order to get that idea to reality.
Your functions as concepts that you can convert to reality, like apply them as a concept. That's interesting. Yeah.
They're all little tools on a little toolbox.
They're all little, yeah. In your little NI toolbox, you have all of the functions. That's interesting. Okay. Like you're rendering from the NI. Yeah.
Yeah.
Binyamin, how do you treat the 8 functions as tools? You on the same boat?
I personally, I have a different view of how the 8 functions express themselves. I really think we have 4 functions, and they're not introverted or extroverted. They're just thinking, feeling, sensing, and intuition. And then based on how you configure yourself, you'll have some of them in the objective and then some of them in the subjective realm. And then if you want to switch them, then you have to switch both at the same time. You can't just switch one. You can't just use another function. You sort of have to switch them both in order to do that. And I don't think it's natural, and I don't think it's easy. And I think what Lindsay is doing is sort of like a workaround where she understands what the function is supposed to do and how it's supposed to work. And she'll just sort of render that tool in order to use it. And I think that's what she's doing more than using an actual function. But yeah.
Interesting. Like, I'll bring the socionic side into it.
Right.
With the 8 function role function, I personally can see so many examples in my life where under certain situations I can exude an FE warmth, but what I've discovered is I can't apply TE with any degree of FE. It's literally one or the other. And so as soon as I have an underlying objective I want to achieve, other than just being genuinely caring, it's either TE or FE.
Yeah. So FE is supposed to be probably the most difficult function for you to get access to with a lead TE, Alan, because it's your TE should be just dominating your extroverted decider. Yeah. And like giving over that warmth, I don't know if that might be like a facet of FE, but it might not be what FE really does. Yeah, but that's interesting.
Oh, look, I agree with you completely. Yeah. I'm just giving like the cheaters version. For condensing.
Yeah, we're getting a bit off topic, but I'll talk about also myself. Yeah. So my own FI is just so horrible, and I have no idea what it does or what it is, and yeah, my FI, like you guys have much better FI than me, which is I'm clueless when it comes to FI, and I can think about my values, but if I don't have a reason for my value, it just doesn't work. Yeah.
That's interesting, because I feel like kind of in the typing process, one of the things I look for is what function is this person void of, you know?
Right.
So it's like before I even look for the accesses that they might be on, I'm like, what function am I not seeing at all? And sometimes it'll be like, I'm not seeing any FI right now, or I'm not seeing any, like even like a hint of SC or whatever it is. And then usually that kind of pushes me to, okay, they're probably on this other axis then, and then on this other axis.
Right. Yeah.
But it's interesting because it's like, like people who have, you know, like lead TI, it's just harder to even hear anything in their language that resembles FI. So yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, you'll never hear me talk about what I like or anything like that.
It doesn't matter.
Unless there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you in touch with what you like at all, Alan?
I'm starting to take a lot more control over that. Yeah. Right. I've always known. But I couldn't articulate it until it was in front of me.
Right.
or even if I was going back to NI, simulating through something, I knew what outcomes I'd want to avoid or pitfalls I'd want to avoid before engaging in something. But yeah, it's not something that if you gave me pen and paper, I could write down, what are the 10 things that I like or dislike. Just could never do that. Always struggled.
Yeah.
I'm actually curious then, Lindsay, was your FI savior a demon?
Mine's FI is a demon. It's actually unactivated, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay. And so would you be able to just jot down, maybe not now because you're focused on the personal growth, but let's say 5-10 years ago, if you had to write down 10 things that you like, dislike, could you do that openly and easily?
I think I could, but I think I would be kind of bullshitting them a little bit. Like, I don't know if they would have been as well processed as they would have been now, honestly, if I would do it. Because I just feel like, okay, my goal is just to finish writing down these things. So I just got to get stuff out on paper, but really processing what's really important to me. Like, for example, when I was in high school and I was deciding what colleges I wanted to go to, my mom basically said, oh, you should be a teacher because then you'll have summers off and, that'll be great. And I was kind of like, I guess that makes sense. But I hadn't really processed for myself what I wanted to do as an adult at all. And then I kind of went through school and then realized I didn't really like teaching kids at all,
Wow.
And so I didn't process that inner world at that point. I mean, I was 18 years old, so what are you going to do? But I was just thinking of it logically, okay, that makes sense. Okay, it logically makes sense. I would like to have summers off, it would work for me. And it would, provide a good amount of income, whatever. But I hadn't really internally processed it. So.
Oh, fair enough. I'll give a quick example from 3 years ago. I was in a corporate leadership program, and this one was, instead of focusing on skill sets of how to communicate more effectively, blah, 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 it was actually about expanding your mind. All this self-growth development. Anyways, at some point, I got some feedback and I was doing a one-on-one session with one of the coordinators, and Hawken was saying, what's important to you at the moment? And so I just one of the things I said was, it's really important for me winning in a team. And the first thing she said back to me was, why? I was just stumped in my tracks. I couldn't explain anything further, but just innately, I just knew that being in the team, everyone having winning together was important to me. And I couldn't go in. That was the only layer I could go into.
Mm-hmm.
I was just stumped in my tracks, and I just felt so stupid afterwards.
Yeah. But that's exactly what FI people hate, explaining what their FI is. That's just what it is. I don't have to explain. There's no reason for it.
Yeah. So I thought that was a good example of the TE-FI interaction.
Yeah, it is.
And this was before I knew the cognitive functions at all. It was just something innately that I knew was important. That was the only layer I could explain it. And that's why I love this personality stuff. It gives you a common language to talk to other people.
Yeah.
Share.
Yeah. So tell me about your SE, Alan, because that's your second and we didn't really touch on it yet.
Sure. Okay. It's interesting. I gave a talk in December about being an ENTJ. This is in a meetup community in my local area. And I got 3 people that know me really well to rate my cognitive functions. So I gave them a description. Everyone said my SE was low, which I thought was interesting. And I myself thought my SE was something that I've only developed recently. So I can see myself actually using a lot of SE, but I'm coming to terms of whether I'm still trying to figure out if something I've developed or something that is genuinely my savior. So what is SE? Gathering facts. This is, once again, right, if I go back into this analogous world, when I was younger, I didn't gather facts. I'd just jump in and I'd figure it out. And so, to me, that was...
But that's sensory. Yeah, that's SE still. That's gathering sensory.
Far out. Yeah. Cool. You're right. I didn't actually think about it that way. You're right. I'm just jumping in, and then as things are coming to me, I'm going, okay, this slot's here, that slot's there.
Yeah.
And see, because I was looking at things as how they're slotting, I thought that was NI, because in the sense of I was, instead of just putting, connecting this screw to that hole, I was figuring out, well, which one could it be? And then actually choosing where to go. So even though it was on the fly, there was still intent. But perhaps it is SENTE.
Yeah,
Because you're still doing that
on the fly.
mechanical.
That's your play too. On the fly, SE. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Damn. Oh,
Yeah.
damn.
Cool. Do you do that too sometimes, Lindsay? Just jump in with your play and on the fly figure things out?
So I was talking to someone about this earlier too, and for me, I can't figure something out on the fly unless I know what the endpoint is. So
Yep.
in terms of just like throwing myself into something, I will just stop unless I know exactly what is supposed to be getting done or what exactly the goal is, because then it's like I have no way to measure what my SE is doing. It just doesn't know where it's going. So I really need to, and my NI can do that pretty quick. So if I know that, okay, this is what needs to get done here, then I can go boop, boop, boop with my SE and say, okay, these are kind of the steps I need to go there. And then I can kind of push myself in. But if someone throws me into a situation where I don't know what the outcome is even supposed to be, then I will hit my brakes as hard as they go until that is established.
That's fair. Once again, like I look at that and I go, I think anybody trying to problem solve something needs to follow that line of thought. If you don't know what you're trying to do, how do you know what steps to take?
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
I agree.
And okay, so then once you know what you're trying to do, are you able to dive in and just start working, Lindsay, or do you need a plan of attack first? Do you need to sit back and think about what you're going to
do? So I don't need to think about it that long usually. I mean, it depends on the situation, but usually I can kind of always simulate these should be, and that's what I kind of equate NI to, is NI is always kind of guessing this should work in this situation. This should be the best approach in order to get there. And then I'll just knock on those SE steps. And then if one doesn't work, that's just a place that I can kind of say, okay, well, this doesn't work. So then it should definitely be this thing over here. That should work. That should be the answer to get to the thing. So it's just, refining, but I'm okay with refining things, I guess, like on the go. And, just getting down to a solution. So.
That really lines up with what I thought. No, that's cool. That actually confirms quite a few things for me. Thank you.
Cool.
What does it confirm, Alan? Tell us.
Tell us.
Oh, no, just the whole prediction. I don't know. Like for me, I still treat it as my NI serves TE. So if I go back to the example that I was first highlighting before, I've wanted to start a few businesses over the past couple of years, all focused on different areas. And, okay, instead of going that, I'll do a different example. One of the businesses.
I'm just noticing, before you start your example, I'm just noticing that like Lindsay is completely talking about the concept and then you're jumping right into an SE example. It's really interesting. Go ahead.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Okay, so in this example, I wanted to start a business relating to a product that was related to babies and cots. And this was through an experience I had, so I was very FI driven. And I was actually one day I came up with this prediction. Okay, this product actually could result in a baby fatality. And I was like, oh man, this changes everything. Like I realized you can put disclaimers and involve lawyers for protection and whatnot, but then you've still got the moral impact that you have to live with, if regardless of legal repercussions. I was like, I just can't do this. But the thing is, I never actually explored the consequences any further than that initial thought. I came up with a prediction that, okay, this is a possibility, and I just treated as sensory, this is guaranteed to happen. I didn't fully explore the risk probability out. Now in my professional life, I do flesh out the probability. Well, I'm paid to do it. So everything I do is risk-based. But in my personal life, when I had something that was so pinging on my FI call, I said, no, that's it. Just assume it's real, and I won't refine that any further. And that's why I found it interesting, because what you were highlighting was a similar process, but then you still reiterate. Whereas I stay on version 1.
Interesting. Yeah. And yeah, that was really interesting how you said that, because I feel like I'm usually in kind of like business or group situations where there's like brainstorming or things like that happening. I'm always the one putting the brakes on everyone else's ideas, because I'm always kind of thinking about, well, okay, well, if we did this that way and we did that way, well, then A, B, and C, and D could also happen. So have we thought about that? And have you guys considered, these other options? And it's always kind of looking at like, well, if that wouldn't align with what we were actually trying to do, And so I feel like I'm always like the buzzkill at like at meetings and stuff like that, because I just want to make sure that all the elements were considered before the steps have been like moved ahead on, and for me, that's just such a default state. And in a lot of ways, sometimes that I'm not really the creative one, I'm not really as like, well, this would be a great idea. And then, so that's kind of sometimes harder for me, just to like move ahead with this would be a great, business opportunity. I'm like, well, okay, let's consider it all, like, will this really work out, but that's just interesting how you said that.
So how do you go then with having NEs in the group? Because they're obviously just throwing a whole bunch of darts, and each one of those darts you want to map out.
She has to deal with it every day.
Literally every day at my job. It's just
and
me,
at home.
like, swatting NEs like left and right, because there's just so many ideas, and I love them for it. But I think that comes down to, why it's important for any workplace or anything like that to have a more balanced group of people working there, because you need people to be responsible for the SI, you need people to be responsible for all the different functions, right? And if you have an overworking of people who there's 20 NEs in a room and there's 2 NIs and 2 SIs, it's going to be very, very lopsided in terms of too many ideas and not enough operational structure to make things actually work. And I appreciate it very, very much, but at the same time, I'm very weary to jump on anything before it's really been kind of like worked out fully. So.
But that's the beauty of you having that internal struggle, but still being a double decider, so you can navigate through the person-to-person conflict, pick the battles. Mm-hmm. See, whereas me being the lead TE, if I get to the point where there's just too many ideas and I want to stop it like you, but when that masculine T comes out, everyone remembers forever.
Actually, I love working with ENTJs. My first boss at like my first like big kid job was an ENTJ, and he took a big leap hiring me for something I wasn't really qualified for, but I ended up doing a great job at, and we just worked well together because he could take more of like the extroverted role with things, but then we could really like knock together on like the TE aspect of is this going to work, and so it was a really great working relationship.
Ah, cool.
We're gonna go soon. One last question. I was just wondering about in like a crisis situation, how you guys deal with it. Maybe let's start with Lindsay and your crisis situations.
Give me like an example of what a crisis you would consider.
Facebook groups down.
Facebook group is down. I don't know. I think I just go do something else.
No, I mean like, okay, let's say something happens around you that needs to be dealt with. Like someone passes out next to you and falls on the ground or something like that.
Oh, I would be like, let's call 911, see if the person's breathing.
No, yeah, but I mean like that sort of thing, like conceptual,
yeah,
not specific example. Yeah.
So I'm okay. It's weird. in the moment when something really is a crisis situation, I feel like my brain just reacts without me even really knowing what it's doing, but it kind of just knows what to do. And some of that, I mean, I was a lifeguard when I was younger. I don't know some of that like training in there, but I think it's like if I have anything kind of programmed in my subconscious to know what should happen in a situation that's a crisis, my brain automatically will just kind of make it happen. It's very calm and cool and collected. Like,
because like your NI is already preparing for all of the possible crisis situations that could be. So then when one pops up, you can just deal with it.
Yeah. And people have been like, you just handled that very well. And you just didn't even seem frazzled. And I'm like, I don't really know how I handled it well. Like it just happened. And there really isn't a thinking process really going at all, but it's all kind of already there, I guess. So I'm sure if it was a crisis where I had no reference of what should happen in that situation, I think it'd be very different. But in most situations, I feel like I kind of have some realm of understanding of what should happen, and I don't know, it does.
What about you, Ellen? Is there a contrast?
Well, firstly, slightly. Well, firstly, I think this is a fantastic question. So thank you for asking it. And I agree with Lindsay in the sense of when you're in a crisis that you've got a little bit of knowledge on, you can default into this mode of automation. So I get that completely. I'm curious, before I answer mine, I'm just curious. So Lindsay, I'll give you an example of a crisis. You obviously do all the stage show stuff. Mm-hmm. If one of the performers fell down and obviously was injured, is it a thing where you've got professionals there to help out, so you kind of just step out the way, or do you think your natural inclination would be to jump in and help where you can?
So if someone was hurt like next to me during a show, I think my first reaction would be to see, I mean, I'm sure someone else, if I was in the air, someone else would go to meet the person probably immediately. And I would probably just hold whatever I was doing and just stop. So people realized that the show was not moving forward and that there was a pause, and that I would assume at that point they would probably black out the lights and then, call it. That's kind of what I just would guess would happen in that situation. But I probably wouldn't immediately rush down from the place that I was, just in case there was something else wrong, like if there was a rigging issue that was like beyond what I understood at that moment. So I'd probably just hold. Yep.
Fair enough. At least you've thought about it. There'll be some people that maybe have not.
Yeah.
What about you, Ellen? Did you want to answer quick before we're out of time?
Yeah, sure. I love being in crises. I just find that's when everything that you've been working towards clicks together, and I found that's when people are most inclined to. That's when I feel I can most contribute. And crisis doesn't have to be someone getting hurt. There's lots of forms of crisis. It's very application specific. But like even as a young engineer, my role at that time was to support plant breakdowns. And this was $1 billion industry. Like it was literally costing $100,000 an hour. So when you had to jump in to problem solve and fix a crisis of a mechanical, physical sorts. But I mean, obviously there's other types of crises. But for me personally, I look at it as my easiest opportunity to show leadership qualities.
Right. So you feel like your SE is more able to deal with the situation as it comes up then, like rather than being prepared for it beforehand?
Yeah. I find myself quite calm in them. Having said that, I had a crisis event maybe 6 months ago at work. Not that all of them are work related, but this one specifically was, and people thought that I was running around like an Energizer bunny. So I don't know, maybe I have to reevaluate.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for coming out. I know, Lindsay, you have a channel that we can promote, so we'll put that in the description. And yeah, have a good one.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.